Welcome back to Out There with Dan. When you last saw me, I was beside the grey dingo as it was getting loaded onto a tow truck on the side of the road in Maui after my trip in the high country with Jason. And in real time, it's been several months since then. I've been busy with a lot of things and it's taken me a while to catch up video-wise. And I guess you're wondering what the heck's going on with the grey dingo. So to do a bit of a recap, I'll put a link to the video, but the grey dingo lost power. I heard an engine noise and then I was reluctant to turn the engine on and off again. Jason needed to winch me up a hill. We were at about 1,300 meters above sea level elevation, and Jason's battery went flat and we had a real ordeal trying to troubleshoot and get out of there. I left Jason and Matt, who came to help us. On my drive home, the engine got progressively, less and less compression, more and more smoke coming out the back, oil light coming on when I was going around corners at slow speed and then disappearing again. And I thought, while it's running, I'm going to try to get it home. If you're familiar with the roads coming west from Gippsland on the M1, on the Princess Freeway, coming up and down and over, there's some big hills as you come into Maui. So that's where it cucked it. It didn't have enough to get up the hills and then it just threw a spaz. Luckily, I got off the freeway safely and pulled in right there. That's when I checked the oil and it was just burning through oil, smoke coming out the back, and the sound got progressively worse, which I described in the video as your neighbor using a circular saw in his garage a couple of doors down from you. At the time, I thought the white bluey smoke, burning oil, and the sound coming from the engine probably meant something to do with the piston. All in all, it was a long day. I got stuck on the side of the road in Maui. I got towed to my mechanic in Bunyip, and my brother-in-law Troy was kind enough to come pick me up from there and bring me back home because the kids were all in bed. So I didn't get home till after midnight. So with all the events that happened during the day, overall it was quite traumatic, I suppose, and I was absolutely knackered. Dad took me back to the mechanics in the morning to collect all my camping stuff, dry out my awning, and just be prepared that the dingo wasn't going anywhere quickly after that. It couldn't come at a worse time for us. We weren't expecting to spend a lot of money on a vehicle right now. Talissa's just gone back to work, and so the grey dingo is needed as a commuting vehicle as well. So, we need two vehicles at the moment. Cost of living was at a peak then. Well, it's continued to go up, hasn't it? It's still at a peak. But really, we're a single income family. We're relying on that vehicle, and it was a big financial strain at the time for us to decide what we should do. The main things I reflect on from that day, should I have turned the engine on again, off again from limp mode and then on again to see what happened? Had I have done that, we would have driven straight up there and I probably would have worked out the engine was declining quickly, but that struggle we had on Zulu Creek track wouldn't have happened had I just been, willing to turn it on and off again. So that played on me a bit. But really the thing that played on me the most was, should I have just put it on a tow truck in Benambra or in Bairnsdale? I guess I was thinking, while it's running, I've had a long day, I just want to get home. And I guess while it was running, I thought that perhaps it was, if it was the engine, it would require some degree of rebuilding the engine anyway. So I thought I was already in this camp of, the damage is done. But I wasn't, because it went into catastrophic failure. And then the next day when Dad, brought me down to do the admin on the vehicle, it was totally seized. So the engine wouldn't even start the next morning. Could I have, spent several $1,000s on a tow to save more money in rebuilding the engine? That's something I'll have to live with, that decision that I made at the time. The other things that I thought of afterwards were how important it is to travel in a group, had I been alone in that remote area, off-road, in the high country, it was a Monday, it could have been a long time before someone naturally came through and found me. Take a PLB with you when you're doing this kind of travel, register it with the Maritime Safety Authority and log the trip that you're doing specifically, even with a rough region, so that if you're unaccounted for, people know where to start the search party. And let people that you know at home what you're doing and give them a rough area that you're going to be traveling, if not a map where you intend to go. Another step that I go to is people that I'm traveling with. I try to get their spouse's details or partner's details or family's details so that I can give that to my family. And so then if I go missing, they can immediately contact them. If they don't hear from me, they can try them as well and say, hey, have you heard from those guys traveling today or since yesterday? And that might be enough to put your family's or significant people's mind at ease if you do go missing. And people do go missing in the high country fairly often, more often than you think. And you've got to be prepared. You really do. You don't want to rush anything in your recovery or in your problem solving. That's when people get hurt, things get missed, simple things that shouldn't normally happen, begin to creep in. We decided to brew up when we were sort of in the chaos of it, and just take a step back, put yourself out of the situation, look down on the situation, and just put on your practical, sensible brain and just tackle it. Go slow. In this case, we both had fridges with a few days worth of food, stacks of water. We knew exactly where we were. Everything's survival is stacked in your favor in that spot. So there's no point going, oh no, and then rushing to a solution that ultimately leads to more disaster. There was a point where Jason explained to me what we were going to do, which was I was going to use my jump starter, my JS80 from iTech World, and start the battery. Once his was getting revs, I was going to shut the bonnet, and he was going to reverse back to get some juice in the engine. And that was all well and good, but my brain was over here, and I heard something totally different. And so when that moment came, the engine turned on, I was thinking about you guys filming. I had the Grey Dingo in mind. I was freaking out, and I didn't do it. And ultimately it cost us another hour or two of mucking around, I think. So the lesson there is, when you're communicating in an emergency, agree on the plan and then have both people talk back to each other what that plan is. So Jason was not at fault. What would have been best was Jason explained it and then said, all right, Dan, now you say it back to me so we know we've got the same plan. And I'm going to start doing that from now on. So when there's important things about safety, things about vehicles and recoveries, then I'm going to get that acknowledgement that everyone knows what's going on. So that when you got your mind on different things, you're thinking about too much, get your mind focused and get the communication crystal clear. The last one's a bit more superficial, and that's I needed to borrow a strap of Jason in the recovery, a bridle strap or bridle rope, or what do they call them? A equalizer strap that just connects between the two front recovery points to create an arc, so that when you're pulling, it's spreading the weight evenly on both sides of the front. So yeah, pretty small thing, but this is what it's about: learning as you go and figuring out what you need and you don't need. Some fans of the channel have pointed out that there's probably 3 different ways you can tackle the Grey Dingo, and I'd argue there's 4. First of all, an engine rebuild. Now, an engine rebuild will allow you to, if done right, give you new legs on an old vehicle. So theoretically, the engine would feel like new if done properly, and I may get another 300, 400, 500, 600,000 kilometers out of the Grey Dingo. The downside of this is I don't know any engine builders or ones that I trust that well, that I don't know whether they're ripping me off or not. There's a lot of vehicles on Marketplace and on car sales that say freshly rebuilt head 10,000, 20,000 ago. I'm really dubious and skeptical about those ones, because if you've spent all that money, you've gone to all that effort, why are you getting rid of it? And I've heard a few horror stories. People that are watching this, I know, have had similar experiences to this, where it doesn't go to plan, there's niggling issues, and you just end up with this prolonged headache. Another big consideration that I had in mind with rebuilding the engine was that the transmission in the Grey Dingo isn't that great either. On the last couple of trips, I've been trying to put it in first low. When you're in first low, you really need it in first low, because you're crawling down steep stuff, and if that gets away from you, you're potentially going to do damage. And what was happening was it was slipping gear to second or even into drive, and it wasn't holding on the hills. So rebuilding the engine would mean it's a more powerful vehicle, which means would probably accelerate the wear in the gearbox earlier. And I reckon if you were doing the engine, you might as well do the transmission as well. Doing the transmission and doing the engine at the same time could be between 15, 20 grand. And that sort of money is probably twice what the Grey Dingo is worth, realistically. So that is a massive factor in considering what you're doing. So the main upside is I get, if done right, a brand new vehicle, and I get to keep the sentimental value of keeping the Grey Dingo. Option 2, an engine transplant. So we could have bought a second-hand 90 Prado and put the 1KZ TE into it. The problem with that is you're spending a lot on an engine and you don't know its history necessarily, and you don't know how long that one's going to last. So proportionally to rebuilding the engine, maybe half that, maybe 75% of that, but you don't get any guarantee. So if you go to a wrecker, you're probably going to get a 3-month, maybe 6-month warranty if they're really confident in it. But you're really rolling the dice. And at that point, you've still got the Grey Dingo, 21-year-old vehicle that's done a lot of hard yards. The interior's getting, old and tired. I'm concerned about things like the seals on the sunroof and the doors, and all in all, it would be kind of like putting a heart transplant into a 100-year-old. Like, how much more value are you really going to get in it? Option 3 is a new old Land Cruiser Prado. And I make that distinction of a Prado instead of just a new car because this implies I can move my bull bar across, my winch across. I've just spent all that money on suspension, so I can move that across. So basically I can have two vehicles, the Grey Dingo and a new one with a better engine, or a newer, better engine that works, and then make the best vehicle out of the two vehicles. You still roll the dice similar to doing an engine transplant, because you don't know the full history of a vehicle that you buy, and getting a low kilometre 90 Prado is getting harder and harder. But I think that if the engine's in there and you can go for a test drive and you know it works, that's better than buying an engine by itself and not knowing its full history and waiting till you fully install it to work out whether you've got a good one or not. And option 4, I guess, is the most exciting prospect. We could have a new Nissan Patrol, an 80 series, 100 series, an FJ Cruiser like Paul's. There's lots of options. Is this a point where we could pivot to try something new? We've had the Prado for 5 years. We love it. We love the Grey Dingo. Is it time to try something new, diversify my experience with four-wheel drives and go down that path? And I suppose if you're looking at a new Prado, we shouldn't just limit ourselves to that. It makes sense that we look at all options. But it does make sense that if we've already got suspension, a bull bar, a winch, that weighs heavily into the financial decision of getting a new car. That and 90 series Prados are probably some of the best value you can get for your money for four-wheel drives. The petrols go, between 5 and 10 grand, and the diesels probably between 9 and 13 grand from what I can see. Good luck trying to find something as capable as that in that price range. A few people have asked what's happening on the channel, what happened to the quiet cooking videos, the fire pit videos, some of your reviews, that stuff. Look, it's coming. This has been a bit of a detour. Like I said, it's come at the worst time. I had a lot of plans for the channel, you know, a lot of stuff planned out, and then without a vehicle, it pretty much went dead in the water for a while, and that's why I've been spending a lot of time on those trip videos. I enjoy doing those, they're a lot of work, but I want to get back to those quiet ones where it's just you and me and we're chilling out and we're talking about stuff. So it's coming, I promise. On the personal front, guys, just before the Grey Dingo broke down, Heathy celebrated his first birthday, which was an absolute blast. Paisley celebrated the majority of her birthdays in lockdown and didn't get a first birthday, and it was really lovely to have all our family together there for Heath. And more recently, Paisley's turned 4. She's at kinder, having a blast. Say hi, Paisley. Hi. So all good on the family front. Things are busy, two young kids, and we're just trying to navigate through life. And I want to continue making videos for you. It may seem like I don't output that many. I am trying, and I think I've just got to accept that I go through periods where I'll do lots of videos and some not so many. And realistically, that's how I've got to do it. Otherwise, I just stress myself out. You know, I need to come home and be a dad, and then you know, the channel comes after that. Don't feel like if I haven't posted in a few weeks that I've disappeared. It's just I've got other things on. But this is a long-term project for me. I'm talking 5, 10, 20 years of sharing my experiences and getting better at making films. So yeah, it's an honor to have you here. I've got a interesting story to tell you. I was recently in Brisbane. I was there for work, and my sister lives up there, and I was coming back home, getting through the airport, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, is your name Dan from Out There with Dan?" And John, if you're watching this, yeah, it was a real surreal experience for me. Yeah, we shook hands and had a brief chat, but he had to run. A guy at work said, "Hey Dan, you don't have a YouTube channel, do you? There's a guy that looks just like you." And then since then, another guy at work's seen a video by chance, and a guy recognised me at the Melbourne Fall Drive Show at Flemington Racecourse, you know, a month and a half back. And I guess the two at work one, I guess people knew me, so there was more of a chance of them connecting me straight away. And then at the Fall Drive Show, I wasn't expecting it, but I thought if it's going to happen, someone will recognise me there. But I literally got recognised in public in Brisbane at the airport by someone, a fan of the channel. And yeah, I'm absolutely stoked by that. People have said that being a YouTuber means that you're going to you know, be in the public eye. You're basically a public figure, and I kind of pass that off. But the idea that that's the power of the internet, that people are able to recognise me and you know, come up and say hello, that's great. So if you do see me out and about, whether it's at Bunnings or at the supermarket or at a train station or in the bush, come say hello. I promise I won't bite. I'd really love to get to know you. And back to the Grey Dingo. What have I gone with? What have we gone with? Well, I'm going to leave you hanging a little bit longer. Probably the way I've talked in this video may drop some hints, but yeah, I'm going to make you wait a couple more days. Keep an eye on the community tab, and I can guarantee I'm about 5 to 10 videos behind in editing that have already been filmed. Exciting period for the channel coming up. I'm glad you're here. Thanks so much for supporting me. See you soon.